Welcome to the Friday edition of Cowboy Up with Tex. Yeah. Actually, I ended up changing the way I was going to do things a little bit today. They just came out talking about how Dzhokhar Tsarnaev has been sentenced to death for his part in the Boston Marathon bombing. Of course, to me, the main question is will he actually ever be put to death? Or will he just be yet another old man on death row? Yeah, I've always found it funny how the same people that can't wait to kill an innocent baby who hasn't done anything want to try to save murderers, some of the most depraved people on the planet, and they will spare no expense to protect their lives, but not the lives of innocents like babies. I just don't understand that. Back in Texas, I actually worked for the Texas State Prison System for a number of years. I was a carpenter foreman for them. My crew was inmates, but I was an employee. And I will say, working for the prison system opened my eyes to a few things. You know, there's a joke that they say that he needed killing ought to be an excuse. Well, he was just mean. Well, you know, that's the thing. There are people out there who enjoy being mean. You will never change that out of them. There are people that, for whatever reason, will never be like the vast majority of people in society. And one thing you got to keep in mind, yes, Dzhokhar is relatively young right now. And yes, he was in it with his brother, but they knew what they were doing. He was old enough to be able to appreciate what he was doing. And ultimately, they weren't just trying to bomb the marathon. You have to look at the reasoning that they had behind wanting to do the Boston Marathon bombing and what they hoped to accomplish overall. Kind of like Charles Manson, when he was wanting to start off race wars by doing the Manson slayings in California. They were hoping that this would be able to start an uprising in the United States, an Islamic uprising of things going on where Americans would be killed by others following their example. So he wasn't some sweet little kid. You know, the funny part is that Russia had actually given the United States a heads up over these guys being dangerous. We'll talk more about that here in a little while. But the thing of it is if he had just simply gotten life without hope of parole, he would be in what's called general population of a maximum security unit. But by being on death row, he will actually be in a separate area where he will stay until he either dies, gets executed, or ends up being released one way or the other. Because keep in mind, these liberals will spare no expense to try to get him released. Which is kind of funny because Timothy McVeigh was killed almost instantly when he got sentenced to death for the Oklahoma bombing. Well, I've heard some people say that, well, Timothy McVeigh knew some names. He knew some stuff going on, and they wanted to get him out of the way before he could spill the beans, kind of like Lee Harvey Oswald. On the other hand, Zohar's brother was the brains of their outfit, so when he got killed, Zohar knows a little bit, but not enough to make him instantly eligible to be killed. So they'll probably drag it out for a while, because as long as he's alive and they can keep his name in the news and they can keep talking about what he did and why he did it, they'll be able to milk him like a martyr for years and years to come. And that's the real shame. One of the things that I did learn while I was working for the prison system is that there are innocent people in prison. Now, I will clarify that by saying that the average innocent person in prison is not an innocent. They just may not have been guilty of that particular crime. But they were bad people to begin with, which is how they got on the police radar. But even at that, there are still truly innocent people who were good citizens, both in prison, and I don't doubt that there has been some that have been executed. So we need to make absolutely sure, go through everything we can possibly do, DNA and everything else, when somebody is expected to be executed. But if they are without a doubt truly guilty, sometimes it's actually the humane thing to do to go ahead and execute them. And you say, well, how could that be? How could that be humane to execute somebody, even if they're a bad person? Well, there again, he's like 20 years old. He's going to have 3 meals a day. He's going to have medical. He's going to have everything done for him. He could easily live to be 70, 80 years old. He's going to be in prison for 60 plus years. Well, if that's all it was, I'd say good. Let him suffer, because that's what it really is. It's suffering. But you have to look into who all his staying alive affects. First off, you have the victims, and not just the injured people who are going to have to live with the knowledge that the person that did this to them is still alive and in good health, who has a family that still cares about him. You have to think about the relatives of the people that died. And they're going to be knowing that their loved one is gone, while this person still lives. Then you have to wonder about the relatives of Zohar himself. They're in kind of a twilight zone, you might say, where they can't truly mourn for him because he's not dead, but they can't feel good because he's in prison. I mean, how would you like to be his mother or one of his other relatives? Oh, where's your son? Well, he's in prison for killing a bunch of people. You can't just say he died, because deep inside you'd know you were lying. And what about the ramifications of how other people treat them? Plus, what about the people that he's around, the people that are in danger because of him being in prison? When you're on death row, or when you are in prison for the rest of your life with no hope of parole, what incentive do you have to be decent? You had your chance to be decent and you already blew it. I've seen that happen in the prisons, where people that are just going to be mean have no incentive to do anything right, and they actually revel in being mean, and they hurt people. And it's not just prison guards. There's other people like myself, who when I worked there, I was an employee, not a correctional officer. You have women that work in the male units who are secretaries, nurses, teachers, clerical. You have other people like the preachers and male teachers even. Texas had a big problem back, when was this? Probably about 1984, I believe it was, when a number of inmates took over the prison library at the Huntsville unit, the main unit, the number one unit of the prison system. Somebody had smuggled in a pistol to them, and they were able to take over the library. And by the time everything was said and done, they had shot several women and had wounded a preacher before the law enforcement people there were able to take all of them out. One guy lived out of the gang of, I think it was about like 4 people that were involved in this. They didn't care. They had no concern for other people's lives at all. And yet, the weird part of it is like I said, there are people that will try to justify what they have done, try to excuse it, and try to make the case that, well, they're just misunderstood. They still need to live, but yet turn right around and say that a little baby who hasn't hurt anybody, a true innocent, that somehow, because somebody else wants them to die, they have absolutely no rights whatsoever to life. If anybody can explain that to me, call me and tell me, because I would really love to hear somebody explain to me how somebody like Johar deserves to live, while a young baby who hasn't done anything to anybody deserves to die because somebody else doesn't want them. The number here is 800-8949, 423-800-8949. Well, it'll be interesting to see just exactly how long he'll be on death row. Of course, they're going to probably have an appeal and another appeal. And I do think that anytime you have a capital case where somebody is convicted, that it's probably a good thing to have a second trial, a verification trial, so to speak. But it has always confused me how you can have a guy walk into a bank and there's like 4 cameras rolling on him as he walks into the bank. And he walks over to the security guard, shoots the security guard, robs the bank. One of the tellers manages to hit the button so that when he walks out of the bank, there's law enforcement out there that stop him. He throws the gun down. He's holding the cash. They have a whole bunch of people that saw him shoot the security guard. They have a whole bunch of people that saw him rob the bank, but all of a sudden he's the suspect. He's not a suspect. They know he did it. Yeah, now they need to go through the trial and cross all the T's and dot all the I's, but he's not a suspect. People, they know that Johar did this. But at the same time, this is America. So let's just hurry up, do the retrial, and then put him at the front of the line. Well, something kind of good news. The state of Mississippi has an environmental nonprofit agency that just purchased 170 acres of land from a residential development to return to nature and protect a critical habitat for an endangered Mississippi frog called the Mississippi gopher frog. Now, for a lot of people, that might not sound like a super big deal, but the Land Trust for the Mississippi Coastal Plain bought this property. They're going to replant it in longleaf pines and return it as best they can to habitat for the burrowing frog, the Mississippi gopher burrowing frog, and other rare animals in the area. They say that there's only an estimated 125 to 150 adult frogs that live in 3 spots in Mississippi, with about 700 in zoos across the nation. Well, this Harrison County land is among 5,000 acres in Mississippi and 1,500 in Louisiana designated as critical habitat for the frog. And the parcel in question was bought from a development company called Tradition after efforts to work out a land swap with the U.S. Forest Service had failed. So they took it upon themselves to buy this property and turn it into a protected habitat for the frogs. And see, that's the way I think it needs to be done. When something is so critical that they need to have protection like that, these people stepped up and bought the property. Now it's their property and they can do with it what they want. You know, we have several different land trusts here in the Chattanooga area that do a lot of the same type of things. Lula Lake Land Trust, the Nature Conservancy. You know, they put their wallets where their mouths are. Too often, you have agencies like the EPA or groups that they come out and they're like, well, we think this critical area needs to be protected, so we're not going to take the property from you, but what we're going to do is we're going to make it so onerous on you that you can't do anything and ain't nobody else going to buy it from you, which is essentially stealing the property from you. Meanwhile, you can't use the property, you can't develop the property, you can't sell the property, but you still have to pay taxes on the property. So they're getting you 2 different ways. This has happened time and time again, especially through the EPA. Yeah, I was reading an interesting thing where they said that the most despised governmental agency in the entire federal government is surprisingly not the IRS, it's the EPA. Because it's always their way or the highway. So at least these people in the Land Trust for the Mississippi Coastal Plain, they cowboyed up. They put their wallets where their mouths are. And I appreciate that. Well, you know, they passed the Coker-Cardin bill, which is the bill that talks about the Iranian nuclear treaty that President Obama's been working on. Well, it passed, and it serves absolutely no affirmative purpose. The Constitution already provides for a method for the Senate to affirmatively approve treaties. There's a constitutional process for that to occur. But instead, what's happened is Corker's bill, which he's attempting to sell as a check on Obama's power to negotiate, it actually performs the exact opposite function. Because what ends up happening is instead of requiring that Congress vote affirmatively to approve an agreement, it allows the government, it allows the agreement to take effect unless it is disproved by Congress, which is a big difference. An affirmative role would require Obama to persuade a simple majority in both houses to approve his agreement. If he failed, the agreement's dead. But under a disapproval mechanism, the burden shifts to congressional opponents of the Iranian deal, who need to convince not simple majorities, but supermajorities in both houses if they want to kill the bill. because they have to pass a resolution of disapproval, which requires only a simple majority. At that point, Obama can veto it and send it back, which they would then need a supermajority to override the veto, and that ain't going to happen. But at the same time, everybody gets the political cover of being able to say, well, we voted for it to go down, without actually delivering a defeat to Obama. That's our government in action. We'll be back following these words with more Cowboy Up with Tex.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Surgery does not have to be financially painful. Hi, I'm Surgical Dr. David Red, and I'd like to invite you to my walk-in surgery clinic in North Shore. Quick Surge brings you immediate relief from moles, skin tags, maybe a laceration. Quick Surge. You walk in, fill out a mini form, I numb the area I'll treat, and before you know it, you're on your way home. Do I take insurance? No, because I take cash customers. I have super low and fixed prices, credit card, check, or cash. Uninsured, member of the working financially disadvantaged, choose Quick Surge. I publish prices online. No murk, just sunshine. Hassle-free, pain-free. Love the idea of a personal relationship with a doctor? Drop in with a nasty cut from work. Quick Surge, I'll take care of you. Quick Surge in the Public Center on the North Shore. No insurance hassles with Quick Surge. The national medical system is dysfunctional, overpriced, very alienating. I'm part of the solution, and so are you. Come on home. QuickSurge.com. QUIKSURG. Relief.
Pure, honest, fair, and respect. Just some words that come to mind when you think about how you want to be treated. And that's how you're treated at Rivermont Pure. Rivermont Pure in Rivermont, Chattanooga. Serving your vehicle needs for over 30 years.
Now that's a long time.
Owner-operators Charlie and Tommy always put your needs first. Yeah, go ahead. Get an estimate from one of those big guy impersonal car repair chains.
No way!
Then bring it to Tommy and Charlie at Rivermont Pure. Chances are they'll beat their price and get your vehicle back on the road faster than you can say,
our customers come first. Hi, this is Charlie.
And I'm Tommy, owners of Rivermont Pure. We're here to serve you.
Rivermont Pure, the auto repair guys. Featuring ethanol-free fuel. Located across from Rivermont Elementary on Hickson Pike. Rivermont, Chattanooga. Rivermont Pure.
Rivermont Pure, that's where I've always gone to get my car serviced. My husband and I trust Charlie and Tommy. They always treat us right and give us a fair price. And they get the job done right the first time. Thank you, Rivermont Pure.
Call 485-3375. That's 485-3375.
Are you tired of working in corporate America, or have you recently lost your job and would like to consider owning your own business? If you are, please call me, as I can help you look at franchises or business opportunities that fit you, the economy that we're in, and the type of businesses that are right in the greater Chattanooga area. After I help my clients find the right opportunity, I also help them find the best way to finance the business, including paying yourself through the startup phase. If you would like to learn more about opportunities that may be right for you, please call me for a free assessment. My name is Bruce Krebs at the Entrepreneur Source. Phone number is 423-875-5621.
Hi, this is your computer speaking. I don't feel so well. It's like I've come down with a bug, and I'm getting slower.
Affordable Computers. We fix sick computers. Your hometown guys at Affordable Computers will repair your PC in half the time of the big boys at an affordable price. No tricks, no gimmicks, no computer speak technobabble. Just good, quick, and courteous affordable service and repairs. Want to affordably supercharge your PC? Affordable Computers on Highway 58. Affordable Computers hand builds all desktops in-house. If you're looking for a better-than-new refurb laptop, $150 will get you a Dell or another name brand at Affordable Computers. Affordable Computers, Highway 58, between Arby's and Taco Bell. Also Fort O, Battlefield Parkway near Holcomb's. Affordable Computers, we service what we sell. Call 499-1975. That's 499-1975.
Wow, this is amazing. I'm feeling great. Supercharged.
If you have the DTs, the shakes, because your phone is on the fritz, you have nomophobia. You need help. Your telecom doctor is in. Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall. Cell Surgeon yanks open the ribcage of your phone, pries out the dead heart, and puts in the beating life that you lead on your cell phone. Broken screen, phone not charging, water damage, battery given out? Cell Surgeon in Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza. Check us out on Facebook. Open Sunday. Cell Surgeon. We bring your phone back to life.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
You love your hometown. Are you interested in free markets, in local economy? Do you hope that Chattanooga can survive the next meltdown, the next chain of disasters in the national economy? What's the best way to live out the ideals of self-government and self-determination? Join me, David Toulis, weekdays 1 to 3.
News Talk 1240.
Love your neighbor, buy local.
Welcome back to the second half of Cowboy Up with Tex. You know, we're not only located at 1240 AM on the radio dial, where you can hear Hot News Talk Radio every day, but you can also get us at hotnewstalkradio.com, or you can even download the TuneIn Radio app and search for Hot News Talk Radio. We're even on Twitter. You can even find us on YouTube. Just go to Hot News Talk Radio. Well, talking about Senator Corker, one of our local politicians, he made some news Wednesday, a couple of days ago, with his astounding comment that he is shocked by how little data the NSA, National Security Agency, is collecting via the U.S. government's mass surveillance program. And he thinks that the program needs to be ramped up hugely. What? They already say that it's recording every phone call, every email, every text message, every Twitter statement that's made in the whole nation. How much more could they ramp it up? Considering the vast scope of the spying program, Corker's plea to let more snooping occur appears to be almost like a call for a godlike omniscience. I mean, think about it. You know, Jesus described God as possessing the ability to number the individual hairs on a person's head and know when a sparrow falls to the ground. And that's almost what Corker's asking for here. To ramp up? I understand recording stuff by bad people, but why do you need to ramp up spying on normal, everyday citizens? Andrew Napolitano spelled out the great reach of the U.S. government's mass surveillance program that he wants expanded, saying that we know that for the past 13 years, the government of the United States of America has been capturing the content of every phone call, every text message, every email, every monthly bank statement, every utility bill, and every credit card bill of everybody. That includes you and me in the United States of America. You know, the Constitution was written to prevent the government from being able to look at every word and every document and explore every one of our thoughts without getting a search warrant as required in the Constitution. Yet the U.S. government has proceeded year after year after year as if it has the authority to exercise such godlike power, pointing to the Patriot Act as the legislative permission slip. You know, that's the thing. You know, politicians always name this stuff crazy things that are usually the exact opposite of the purpose. And that way, if you don't go along with it, you're wrong. Well, you're wrong in the sense that you're not agreeing with what they want. I was talking about little babies being killed a while ago. But if you're for abortion, you're called pro-choice. Baby didn't get a choice. Here we have the Patriot Act. So that means that if you're not for it, you must be unpatriotic. Never mind that you're pro-Constitution, you're pro-America, you're just not for their particular bill. Because politicians like Corker, who are desperate to keep and expand this power, are trying to extend the provisions of the Patriot Act that give legal cover for snooping and other extra constitutional powers before the June 1st expiration date. That's the thing. Once people gain godlike power over others, it's kind of hard for them to relinquish those powers readily. In fact, they often try to expand those powers to the nth degree. So don't believe the self-serving hype that the feds prevent terrorism with all of this spying and literally the trillions of dollars that they spend. They didn't avert the Boston Marathon bombing, even after Russia pointed straight at Johar and his brother and said, you need to watch these guys. Where was the NSA then? What about the two guys that were just killed in Texas? They'd been under the watch of the FBI for years. Where was the NSA when they were driving cross country? Where was the NSA when they were getting out of their cars with rifles? It was only because of the local police in Texas that they learned a harsh lesson. Don't mess with Texas. How many Americans have actually bothered to read the Constitution, let alone the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights? The Bill of Rights only has 462 words for all 10. I keep a copy of it here at the station. If anybody calls up and wants to ask me a question about one of them, I can turn right to it. Because in an age of overcriminalization, when the average citizen unknowingly commits 3, if not more, crimes a day because of all of the arcane rules and everything that they've got, even the most mundane activities such as fishing. Oh, you must have a fishing license. You can only fish on certain days, and you must do this and you must do that. Gardens. Right now, if you're in California, you can't have a food garden in your yard because you're using water so that they can save it for some little fish. Government officials are constantly telling Americans what not to do. Yet it wasn't always this way. It used to be we, the people, telling the government what it could and could not do. In fact, the 3 words most frequently used throughout the entire Bill of Rights in regards to the government are no, not, and nor. The list of don'ts the government is prohibited from doing with the growing list of abuses to which we, the people, are subjected on a daily basis. And we find that we've reached a state of crisis wherein the government is routinely breaking the law and violating its contractual obligations via the Constitution. For instance, the government is not allowed to restrict free speech, press, assembly, or the citizenry's ability to protest and correct governmental wrongdoing. Nonetheless, the government continues to prosecute whistleblowers, persecute journalists, cage protesters, criminalize expressive activities, and crack down on large gatherings of citizens mobilizing to voice their discontent with government policies. Meanwhile, the government insulates itself and its agents from any charges of wrongdoing by what the courts call qualified immunity, which means pretty much that they can do whatever they want and there's nothing you can do about it. The government may not infringe on a citizen's right to defend himself, the Second Amendment. Nevertheless, in many states, it's against the law to carry a concealed weapon, and that's not just a gun, that's like knives or even pepper spray. And the average citizen is permitted little self-defense against militarized police officers who shoot first and ask questions later. When they come gunning for you, even when you've done nothing wrong, where's your ability to protect yourself from overzealous and out-of-control government agents? The government may not enter or occupy a citizen's house without his consent. The Third Amendment. Nevertheless, government soldiers, which is what you might as well consider the militarized police we have these days, carry out more than 80,000 no-knock raids on private homes every year, and a frightening number of those go to the wrong address and assault and kill children, dogs, and citizens with no consequences. The government may not carry out unreasonable searches and seizures on the citizenry or their possessions, nor can government officials issue warrants without some evidence of wrongdoing. You know, that little thing called probable cause. Unfortunately, what is unreasonable to the average American, in fact, the average person worldwide, is completely reasonable to a government agent for whom the ends justify the means. In such a climate, we have no protection against roadside strip searches, blood draws, DNA collection, SWAT team raids, surveillance, or any other privacy-stripping indignity to which the government chooses to subject us. The government is not to deprive anybody of life, liberty, or property without due process. Yet the government continues to incarcerate tens of thousands of Americans whose greatest crime is simply being poor. The government may not take private property for public use without just compensation. Nevertheless, under the guise of the greater public interest, the government often hides behind eminent domain laws in order to allow mega corporations to tear down homes occupied by the poor in order to build high-priced resorts and shopping malls. And I think everybody has heard of asset forfeiture. Well, you may not have created a crime, you may not have committed a crime, but we can charge the money with a crime. What? That's insanity on its face, but yet they take thousands and thousands, in fact, millions of dollars from citizens who've never committed a crime. Well, no, they did one crime according to the government. They were actually carrying legal tender. How dare you carry legal tender? It needs to be in banks so they can keep track of it and know how to tax it and take it from you that way. They're going to get the money from you one way or the other. And talking about the NSA, government agents may not force a citizen to testify against himself. Yet that's exactly what the government's extensive surveillance network that spies on every single one of our communications does, using our own words and actions against us. The government is not allowed to impose excessive fines on the citizenry or inflict cruel and unusual punishments upon them. And yet Americans are subjected to egregious fines and outrageous punishments for minor traffic violations, and generally having the misfortune of being warm bodies capable of filling profit-driven jails. The government is not permitted to claim any powers that are not expressly granted them by the Constitution. This prohibition came about as the government continues to claim for itself every authority that serves to swell its coffers, cement its dominion, and expand its reach. And here's the thing. The problems we're experiencing today did not arise because the Constitution has outlived its usefulness or become irrelevant, which is what's being taught in the schools. They're being caused by the overreach of the government. The problem can be traced back to the point at which we, the people, were overthrown as the center of the government. Our supremacy has been undone, our authority undermined, and our experiment in democratic self-government left in ruins. No longer are we the rulers of this land. We have long since been deposed and dethroned. Without our say-so and lacking any mandate, the point of view of the Constitution has been shifted from we the people to we the government. Our taxpayer-funded employees, our appointed servants, have stopped looking upon us as their superiors and started viewing us as their inferiors. Unfortunately, we've gotten so used to being dictated to by government agents, bureaucrats, and militarized police alike that we've forgotten that we are supposed to be the ones calling the shots and determining just what is reasonable and necessary. We're not the only ones guilty of forgetting that the government was established to serve us as well as obey us. Every branch of government, from the executive to the judicial to the legislative, seems to be suffering from this same form of amnesia. When government programs are interpreted from the government's point of view, there is little that the government cannot do in its quest for power and control. We've been so brainwashed and indoctrinated into believing the government is actually looking out for our best interests, when in fact the only compelling interest driving government programs is maintaining power and control by taking away our money and control. This vital truth that the government exists for our benefit and operates at our behest has been lost in translation over 2 centuries of government expansion, endless wars, and centralized federal power. Why does the Constitution begin with the 3 words, we the people? It was intended to be a powerful reminder that everything flows from the citizens. We the people are the center of the government and the source of its power. That we is crucial because it reminds us that there's power and safety in numbers, provided we stand united. After all, we can accomplish nothing alone. And that is the underlying lesson of the Constitution, which outlines the duties and responsibilities of the government. It was a mutual agreement formed by early Americans in order to ensure that when problems arose, they could address them together. You know, it's kind of like, remember the wagon trains of the Old West? You had a bunch of individual groups of pioneers that instead of venturing out alone, they traveled in the wagon trains in a convoy. And when faced with a threat, those early Americans formed their wagons into a tight circle in order to defend themselves against invaders. They presented a unified front and had each other's backs and provided protection against an outside attack. In much that same way, the Constitution was intended to work as an institutionalized version of the wagon circle, serving as a communal shield against those who would harm us. Unfortunately, we've been ousted from that protected circle, left to fend for ourselves. Those who did the ousting, the courts, the politicians, and the corporations, have since replaced us with yes men who have been invited inside their wagon circle. In doing so, they have set themselves as the central source of power and arbitrators of what is now considered just and reasonable. Once again, we, the citizens, have been forced to navigate hostile terrain, unsure of how to protect ourselves and our loved ones from the militarized police, the weaponized drones, Stingray devices, SWAT team raids, even the ongoing military drills on American soil that are taking place right now. The government stockpiles ammunition while trying to deny it to us, and all other manners of abuses. Read the smoke signals, and the warning is clear. It's time for us to circle our wagons. The government is on the warpath, and if we are to have any hope of surviving whatever is coming at us, we'll need to keep our wits about us and present a unified front. We need to restore, we the people, to our rightful place as the center of government. We have the numbers to stand our ground. Now we just need the will. You know, talking about the military drills that are taking place right now. A lot of people have heard about Jade Helm 15. A couple of thoughts about that real quick, just to show you what I'm talking about, the government. Texas Governor Greg Abbott had been criticized because he wanted the State National Guard in Texas to keep an eye on what's going on, just to make sure that citizens' rights were being considered. How can you consider the citizens' rights? Oh, that's stupid. Yeah, the government knows what they're doing. Well, the governor talked to some members of the military, and he has had assurances that the exercises are going to work out just fine. Isn't that what they always say? Gee, I know how I feel better now, don't you? How is it normal and just accepted for our now standing army to infiltrate and try to blend in with domestic civilian populations, because Main Street America looks so much like the foreign battlefields in other countries across the world that these training drills are supposed to be for in the first place, right? But again, the governor talked to some people in the military, and they told him that it's going to all work out just fine. Well, work out just fine for whom? Nor did he answer a very poignant question, which as yet no one in official capacity has publicly addressed. Jade Helm exercises are also joint exercises with domestic agencies like the FBI and the DEA. Again, why include domestic law enforcement agencies in a military exercise that's supposed to be preparing troops for foreign operations? Why indeed? It's time to cowboy up, folks. Keep your powder dry. We'll talk to you next week on Cowboy Up with Tex.